Continue on. I didn't mean to interrupt that, but I felt like the world should see, should get some insight into where Cote shops other than Costco. Well, I guess you don't shop at Costco. I shop at Costco.
Yeah. Well, I like there's an Amsterdam brand here called Scotch and Soda, and I don't know why. I mean, I guess I could think about why, but I like their clothes. They're like way too expensive for what they are, but they are nicely made.
It's Scotch and Soda in English, or is it in?
Yeah. No, it's in English. All their stuff is in English. It's not in Dutch, but they're based here in the old Amsterdam. And yeah, so we were when we were getting the new house painted. You know, we stayed in a hotel downtown, as no one calls it here, and. So I went over there and they had a sale. So I got some stuff. It was nice. Yep. Compelling story.
Well, hold on. Well, lucky I got that in on the stream beforehand. That's documented forever.
Yeah, but and I got another shirt, which I'll have to show sometime, but I think of it as the, you're watching a mafia movie and there's like, not like the head mafia guy, right? But like one of his lieutenants, like and it's like this polo shirt that's like white and very thin with like, it's not netting, but it's got some texture to it. So it's very thin. And it seems like the kind of thing that like the number 2 or the tier of number 2 people would be wearing, but not the head guy.
I have a shirt like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's
I like that
your Cabana beachside poolside shirt.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like Mafia goes to Florida, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good shirt. The only problem with it is one, it's white, and so in my situation, there's 2 problems with it. Being
enough said. White, we understand. I mean, like no further explanation needed. Like, white, bad for multiple reasons.
Yeah. And then 2, compounding that is like I think it's like you can't just wash it normally. Like it might even be hand wash or some craziness, and it's just like I don't know. But it was worth it. It's a good shirt, so I'm willing to put up with that kind of stuff. But I have to be very selective. Like I was wearing it the other day, and I was going to be going somewhere. Oh, I know. We were going to go to the museum, to the science museum, and so like perfect. We're going to go out. It's fun. It was hot by standards here. It was 80 degrees, 79 or so. It's very hot here, and so I had it on, but then it turned out we were going to stay home. So immediately I changed the shirt because I knew that like, the baby's going to be like, dumping pudding on her head and she's going to be eating strawberries. Then I'm going to have to pick her up. And like, so you can't, it's not a shirt if you've reproduced that you can wear.
If you've reproduced. Yeah, that's how you can always tell the breeders are now wearing white.
That's right. I think you've summed it up well, Matt Ray. That's why it's not a popular color. Yep.
Well, I for one wear a lot of black. Yeah.
That's the perfect color for breeders.
Okay, let me.
Hey, so we're good. We decided we want the chat on, right? On the overlay, right? Okay, just trying to get us all. Because you didn't stream your conversation with Charles, right? Did you just record it?
No. I just used the recording thing because
just double checking.
Because I thought the audio quality here was pretty good.
I thought it was good too. Did your episode come out well?
Yeah, I didn't listen to it extensively, but yeah, it was good.
I mean, I didn't listen to it other than, it's always a good endorsement of yourself. Well, I mean, I listened to it when I was doing it and talking.
Exactly.
I didn't listen back to it. So
that's exactly.
I was conscious when I was doing it, just not afterwards. So.
Yep. That's pretty much how it goes.
That's how most podcasting goes. I mean, do you go back and listen to all the episodes?
Yeah, when you edit them, you do have to listen. You have to listen to it.
I mean, it's
a bit of a forcing function. I can't quite edit just without hearing anything. That
Live
would be
to tape, man.
That would be like just put in the ads like randomly. That would be maybe that would be dynamic ad insertion. Just be like, yep, and here it is. So
yeah. I feel your. I'm sorry. Because having edited my own podcast a few times now, it's like. It only took an hour to record, and yet it takes 14 hours to go.
Let me tell you though, like I will crank up the playback speed. I will go over 2x in the editing. When I'm editing, I mean, I will go almost to the point. At one point, I'm like, I'm no longer able. Like, this is just gibberish. Like, I've when you go like 2.3, 2.4, like I'm like, this isn't editing. This is just like in case there's a bomb going off in the podcast. That's the only thing I'd be able to detect. But I think 1.9.
Can you just like look at the waveforms and you're like, that needs some work there.
Well, if you would quit fucking up, right? I mean, Matt Ray, if you would quit fucking up the ad breaks, then maybe he could.
Hey, that's part of the charm.
Yeah.
No, I felt so good when I edited out Matt's the puppy the other day. I was like, God damn, we're professionals. We're just one step away from being NPR. I was like, took out the stuff was fantastic.
There's a lot of pride to be taken in editing because it's tedious work, but at the end result is like it's good stuff.
Yeah. There is like a really, I think everybody that edits a podcast, like when you get a perfect edit, like you take out 15 seconds and it sounds so natural. It's like you're just by yourself and you're just, I don't know, very happy, right? I think there's something about it. It's like fixing a bug no one knew about in software, in your software code. You're like, I just fixed this incredible thing. No one else in the world is going to know about it. It was so good.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my editor's like stripping trailing white space. I'm like, commit it. Yeah, white space changes. Go. I'm in the commit record.
Oh boy.
I get a participation trophy.
Well, I'm looking at our links here. I forgot about that Docker piece that was written. That's fun. We can talk about that.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about? Well, I was gonna say, do we want to talk about any of the VMware stuff? Maybe we don't.
Which one's the VMware stuff?
Well, so like reading through the Docker things, there's kind of like a bunch of Docker stuff going on. We've got like this article about the history, and last week we had the Docker pricing and the new desktop stuff, and this week we've got VMware's got a new CTO. We've got the new Amazon EKS that just happens to run on VMware. I just feel like there's some sort of VMware Docker, Docker came for VMware and VMware took it. Maybe that's oversimplifying. Because everyone was like, Docker's going to be the next VMware. It's like, no, VMware's the next VMware. VMware's doing the Kubernetes. VMware's doing the virtualization, containerization.
Who took Docker?
I think there's some really good quotes. I thought there were some really good quotes in the how Docker broke in half. Stuff in there. So we can like
but what is like in Twitter? Solomon was saying like the thing was full of lies.
I know, but he's in there. That's what I'm saying. Like he's got.
I know. That was like I was confused. You're not full of lies.
There's like good stuff in here. I think these are good. I think we should just do it. I guess I don't.
Well, hopefully hopefully that means there'll be another article written. That's great. You can clear up. I forget which podcast this was, but you remember that guy Jason Calacanis? He was like a hustler back in the day.
He's still doing stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And he used to do. He was on the media once, which is a great podcast. I haven't listened to it in a long time. I mean, it was a radio show. And I don't know why I'm being all formal like this is a real episode. And anyways, he published the full interview that he had recorded instead of just the edited part. And that seems like I used to do this when I was doing when I would talk with press people. It was great when they would email with you because then you would have a record of everything. Right. And they would cut out a lot of stuff, which is totally fine. But I would often just publish that email. It was like easy content. Right. I spent all this time thinking about it, writing it. And then you publish that as a blog post on the old Red Monk blog. And so I think it would be wonderful if there was more articles that came out because people felt they were edited down too much. That would be nice to see that story. Because I feel like, anyways, we should talk about it when we talk about the article. But what is the, I haven't read up on the, can you do the typical Cote Matt Ray dialectic? Is that the way that it goes? Where I'm like, where I heard Weaveworks has released a version of EKS that runs on premise or something. I don't know. Like what is EKS running on premise mean? That seems I don't even understand what that is. That sounds cool, or not.
All right, we can talk about it.
Yeah, it's your latest on-premise Kubernetes distro.
Okay,
all right, yeah, we'll talk about it.
Kubernetes. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much to say about CTO stuff. And then there's old Peter Ulander.
Well, I thought we could talk about those announcements, because I mean, I do think it's interesting. Ulander and Matt Assay both left AWS, but I think the part, if we want to make it less personal or less about them, more about, I think they were both like ostensibly
open source stuff. Yeah,
and then they kind of their jobs morphed. I think it's kind of interesting subject in general, just like should you do an open source centralized BU? Does it work? Does it not? I don't know. Sure, I think we have opinions on that.
Oh, I see.
That's the so I was like, I'm not that interested in that.
I wonder if
that's like they're like not that interested in that.
I wonder if
right. I wonder if a good pitch.
No. It's the opposite. That does sound interesting. I wonder if established outsiders do well at Amazon.
Well, that's a whole nother. Yeah, I think that's another dynamic there.
I mean, we
also just talk about they both left at the 2-year mark, but they also left right after the reorganization. So I think there's we probably have some thoughts on that, right? They didn't make it the 4 years that most people, that's sort of the incentive structure is 4 years, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it's structured, but usually 2 years you get 25% of your equity, right?
Yeah. So I think we could
or if not one. I mean, by 2 years you should get
1 year you get 50%.
Yeah,
you get nothing. I mean, most places it's nothing the first year, and then usually 1 year it kicks in.
Right, but we know AWS is backloaded, right? They're backloaded 3 and 4 years is that's their thing.
Oh, okay.
Guys, remember Red working backwards? We did. How can you forget?
I know, but then I saw some other tweet somewhere that said not an average, but that the highest dev salary is $700,000, and I was like, no, they only ever pay $165,000.
That's true. Conflicting stuff.
There's something going on here.
More articles to be written.
Time to go back to dev.
Sign me up. What is the coding interview for an $800,000 job? I guess that's well past the sort with a binary tree kind of question, right? It's write this in machine code.
Your paper on binary sorting was published in ACM. That's how you get that salary.
What would you even I don't know. I guess you'd have to have some serious patents.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if I had stayed a programmer, if at this point I would be making as much money and doing less.
Well, you would have traveled less, that's for sure. You probably wouldn't be in Amsterdam.
Because I feel, I mean, this is always the hindsight is relaxing, to use a proverb I just made up. But it seems like, man, programming was pretty easy. You just sort of sit there, you're completely unattached from any business concern or, what's going on. You just kind of talking with people about coding stuff and that's it. There's no I don't know.
If your job, okay, but it depends on exactly what you'd be working on. But let's just say hypothetically, the project required taking a bunch of stuff that's kind of in JSON, doing some processing of it, and then sending it out in JSON. Which I think feels feels like many of the things that we worked on were, it wasn't JSON at the time. It was
it was XML at the time.
XML or something else, and it's even somebody that worked at Google, Google has their own version of JSON, which I forgot the name of it. It's G something, and there you said something the joke was I go to work every day and I take some of this proprietary JSON format in Google, I do something, and then I spit it out. And I was like, yeah, I kind of so that part, I don't think that part programming gets you $800,000 now, but maybe there's something else that maybe there's if you James Gosling, would he be, wrote Java pretty much. He works at Amazon. Would he be at that level?
Probably.
Well, you got I don't know if he still works there, but you got Josh Block, who wrote my favorite book ever, Effective Java. And I think he works at Google. And I just have to imagine. No, I mean, I don't know. Anyways, whatever. All right. So we got some good topics here.
So have 2 ad breaks this week, so
let me see.
Mm-hmm. What is the name of this Google format? I'm not gonna find this.
I mean, gRPCs, they're
is that their thing?
That's not a that's just a communication layer. That came out of
All right, I'll have to figure it out. Maybe have to.
Let me just check thing here. Where did? So problem, you have 3 screens. You switch to a window. Where is it? Why do I have 3 screens?
Maybe it's protobuf. Is that what it is? Let's do 2 hours on the merits of protobuf versus JSON. That will bring the downloads.
All right. Well, whatever. We'll go.
All right, you ready?
Yep. Should I start?
Whenever you're ready.
Well, did we ever do a wood update? I feel like there was a lot of discussion about my excess wood, and I never really did the follow up on what happened with it.
No,
like we have
no update. You didn't send it to Austin. I can confirm that was a solution that you did not go with. So
yeah.
What did you do? Put it outside? Free sign? What happened?
Well, so we scheduled a bulk trash pickup right at our doorstep. I think we haven't gotten the bill yet, but I think I'm going to have to pay like 35 euro, something along those lines. And we dragged all the wood, not dragged, we carried all the wood to the curb. And, we live on the, as Americans would say, second floor. We live on the second floor, the third floor, and the fourth floor of a 4-story building, right? So we've got big stairs that come up. I should say tall. They're like Dutch stairs, so they're not big like American stairs. American stairs, each stair is about the size of a Dutch single apartment. Is what you have going there. So,
somebody lives on the landing. Yeah.
Yes. So we have, like Knott's Landing. That's what they're talking about, I think. So you go up the stairs. So we had to take it all down there, and I was getting nervous because I had you had to specify the cubic meters of material that was being picked up.
Oh, no one said there'd be math.
Yeah, and so I selected, I feel like 1 or 2 cubic meters, because I'm doing it in my head, and I'm like, 2 cubic meters is a lot of volume, right? Like that is a big.
I don't think so. Go on.
I mean, it's a big, it's a big like amount of space. Now the problem was, right? So a lot of the wood was much longer than 1 meter, right? So
but was it longer than 2?
No, well, hold on. See, this is where the cubic meter thing goes a little wonky, right? It's like that is a measure in my mind of total volume, not length, right? So in my mind, right?
Oh, I see how you're getting.
So what I'm thinking is like, if I were to put all of this wood into a chipper shredder,
yes,
could I fit it into a 1 to 2 meter cube box?
And then would it come out like all compressed into
right? Because otherwise, why are you doing why are you doing cubes? Like if you just want length and height, then just do that.
Yeah, but aren't they just going to show up with like a 1 meter by 1 meter by 2 meter box and say put it in there?
Now that would be amazing if it was actually. That would be. I don't know if you know Matt Ray, but I live in the Netherlands, not Germany.
Yeah. Oh,
so
okay.
they're not gonna like engineer the perfect box for my specifications and expect that I can fit it in there.
Well, but mentally, that's where I am. I'm like, it needs to fit in that
totally.
box.
No, and so that was my concern. Is like I was like, oh, when we made the big pile, I was like, I think I might have underestimated this, and I don't know what's going to happen now, right? Because we did all this work to pull this wood down, and like everyone, if you violate the specification of the job to be done, the people who are doing a job they don't really like are going to be like, oh, sorry, bye, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not. There's no imagination in it because it's not that great of a job.
Yeah.
So we put it all out there. I'm stressed out. I'm also stressed out because it's a tall pile of wood. It comes up to about, let's say, knee high. And at some point,
what's that in meters?
That's right. Depends how tall you are. But also I had Cormac help, and he had put something on, and the wood had fallen over. He was fine. But so now we've got this tower of wood, and so I'm thinking like, is this going to fall over? What's going to happen? And I'm always wondering what the neighbors think. I mean, I'm sure the neighbors are like, it's those crazy loud Americans over there, right? Like they just like whatever. So I'm a little worried about it. But so we put it out, we go to sleep, and then I think I biked the kids to school the next morning. The pile of wood was fine, and I came back and it was all gone. They had just taken it. Yeah. It was great, and it worked out fine. And I think it just goes to show you that what you need to do is just go through life assuming things are going to work out, and when they don't, then you get upset. You don't want to get upset, because getting upset ahead of time, it just means that like things are going to work out, and you've also gotten upset. So it's like you just ruin the whole experience. Like you're
that's the difference between me and maybe some other people in my family.
Wait, which side are you on?
I'm on the like things are going to work out just fine.
Is this why you have a dog, Matt Ray?
Oh, that dog is all about optimism.
Yeah, that is exactly that picture you're showing, Matt Ray. I mean, whoever did that, Brandon, that's exactly the picture that I looked up, and I was like, I don't know. I think if you got what we're seeing here is someone standing next to a bunch of box that's 1 cubic meter. And I looked at that and I was like, I don't know. I mean, if you had all this wood, I mean, it's long, but if you sawed the wood in half, it would the volume would be 1 cubic meter.
Yeah, but what if you had like a piece of wood that was like 10 meters long, but just like
It does seem like the person, the way this question is asked, I guess on the website or however you did it, I think they must have encountered this problem quite a bit. It's like, well, the total volume versus the how it would be more like this. It's total volume versus how oddly shaped the object is. Like there should almost be a checkbox or something along the lines of, is this an oddly shaped object that's going to be like, very hard to move. That seems like, or they just right. Nobody, maybe they just figured out, I was like, it doesn't really matter what questions we ask. We just show up and we just make it happen.
I mean, I think ultimately when it comes to refuse collection, it's usually the second, right? It's just like you put all this process around it. And it's basically like a couple of people show up, they have a gigantic truck, and they put all the stuff in the gigantic truck and it gets crushed. And that's sort of like, but I feel like the people who make the forms for you to fill out, that they don't want like, they don't want the form to be like, I would like to request 2 people to come stick stuff in a giant truck and crush it. Like that doesn't feel like what a bureaucrat wants to put in a form. So they have to, no pun intended, formalize it.
Yep.
All right, good. I enjoyed your discussion of 1 cubic meter. That was perfect. I learned a lot. Actually, 1 cubic meter is smaller than I would have guessed. That's why I Googled it. So, good for the cubic meter. And with no segue possible, I'm now going to ask everyone to please go visit our sponsor, StrongDM, where they can't really help you with cubic meters, but they can help you with security. So check out all of our friends over at StrongDM. And of course, tell them Software Defined Talk sent you.
My other topic was Cormac had to, they were trying to teach him, I think, about how to different bases and numbering systems. And for some reason, they were making him decode Babylonian numbering, which is in base 60.
Oh,
60?
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Seems a little hard. All right.
I don't know. It's just like, I feel like in
what, hexadecimal not available? Binary? They're just like, let's go 60.
I explained
that's what it is. I couldn't remember the name for hexadecimal. And, I was telling him like, you should ask your teacher, like what it is they want you to learn. Do they want you to learn like about bases and numbers? Because
you've already probably lost this. Like when he's like asked the
teacher,
he's
tuned out.
Dad, I need to finish the thing and go back to watching Minecraft or videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
Please give me the answers.
I mean, I was trying to tell him that like binary is useful and whatever base 8 is useful. because that's the way computers think. And whereas unfortunately, unless you invent a time machine or you're an archaeologist specializing in Babylon, this numbering system is totally useless for you. There's no reason to know how to use base 60. So like,
what are the numerals? Because I think hex is nice to learn because I don't know. It's kind of when you learn that like, oh, A, B, C, like, oh, those are just like new numbers. Like that's like kind of a light bulb can go on people's minds. Oh, wait a minute. It's just an arbitrary character can be a number.
Yeah. You might as well.
Like you don't need base 60.
Dwarvish.
I say base 60 seems like that's a lot of that's that's like Roman numerals. Like, yeah, this is kind of useless. Don't bother learning this.
That's
like,
how you keep track of your Super Bowls.
Right. But they just eventually make it simple. They're just like, it's Super Bowl 50. I can't remember the VX.
They gave
double.
Up. They gave up.
They need to move on. They need to just go to numbers.
I mean, I think the obvious commentary on it is like, does Babylon still exist? Exactly.
Roman numerals? More like Roman not.
Right. Let me tell you a little bit about history. The winners write history.
Yeah. It's all about decimals, baby.
Base 10, 1. It's over. Any other questions?
That's right. Yeah. All right.
Whenever you're ready.
Well, we're always angling to hear what the deal with Docker is. And there was a 2-pager in InfoWorld. It's very rare, I think, in InfoWorld, where you read down to an article and you see like click for next, right? Like and this was I forget the person who wrote it, but they did a great job. A lot of reporting, a lot of quotes from people, from Docker people, from the Solomon guy himself. They got Joe and Craig, I think, now here at VMware of Kubernetes. VMworld is coming up, however. You should keep that in mind. They got them to comment on it. It was pretty good. Now, I don't think that the article it got really close to to some sort of insider juicy stuff. But that's fine. It's a very respectable article. We don't need to have the rubbernecking on things so much. But I think it did sort of introduce some. Maybe not new concepts, but it has some people on the record talking about what happened.
I think we should have a couple of them. I think a few of these quotes, I think they were fantastic quotes for tech, right? So Craig over from now at VMware, he's talking about at the time that there's talk about what's going to happen with Kubernetes, and Docker's trying to figure out what they're going to do. So there's discussion of maybe Kubernetes will be offered up to Docker. So I thought
that was interesting.
I thought this whole quote was really good. So he basically says, let's see, he says the following. He says, they offered to donate Kubernetes to Docker, but the two sides couldn't come to an agreement. And then here's the quote from Craig. There was a mutual element of hubris there from them that we didn't understand developer experience. But the reciprocal feeling was these young upstarts, referring to the Docker people, really don't understand distributed systems management. And I was like, this perfectly encapsulates where we are today with Kubernetes. I was like, this statement has propagated since the beginning of Kubernetes to this moment, because I would say this is where we are today. It's always like, well, operators like it, developers a little frustrated, and lots of people trying to make it simpler, right? And it's just like
the developers.
So it's both. I don't, I mean, from his perspective, it seems like it's almost like operations and developers arguing, just perfectly encapsulated here. So that's why I thought it was really well done, or well said.
I think you're right, Brandon. When I read this yesterday or today, whenever it was, I'm remembering now that was my mate. Excuse me, I was getting a little choked up there. That was my major summary thought is I've been thinking that over the next year, what we need to hear more from the Kubernetes community. I'm always obsessed with what does Kubernetes want? And what that really means is what do the people who create Kubernetes want? What are their intentions, right? And I think, the last thing I think we heard about what Kubernetes wants is that it's a platform for building platforms, which is fine. But I think what we're getting closer to, or I was thinking as I was reading through this, is I think what Kubernetes wants is for developers not to touch it. right? Like I think there's kind of like in my mind, there's this version of what DevOps is, that DevOps actually doesn't involve very much at all about application developers. The dev in DevOps is more about operations people becoming more developer oriented and doing things. And so based on that, and you know, as you were just kind of summarizing, and there's a little bit more nuance added to it in the quotes in the article, but you summarized it good, Brandon, or well, I should say, is I think what you pick up on is that Docker was developers making things quick and easy for developers. And Kubernetes was like, let's make things quick and easy for operations people. And like, let's build a platform that like operations that appeal to what operations people need. And maybe not worry so much about what developers are doing, because Kubernetes doesn't want developers to touch it. Right. Like and that's how we end up with the, I don't know, with the split between the two,
the split in UX. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, so definitely, I'm with you in some aspects of that. Like, I agree that Kubernetes is like, we need to start by nailing the theory before we nail the implementation, right? You know, this needs to be provably correct before we like, you know, make sure that it's usable. And you know, Docker was like, you know, hey, we need to make this as easy and appealing to use, you know, and you know, we'll work on all the like the hard, you know, the esoteric operations problems that you have with distributed systems. You know, we'll worry about that later. But you know, so Docker absolutely nailed, you know, the user experience. It was so much better than this, you know, Rube Goldberg of trying to get VMs on your desktop to behave like containers.
Yeah, and then in the interest of you know, equal time here, I think, you know, Solomon Hykes from Docker, right? He comes back with, I think, an equally enlightening quote. So he basically says, Hykes does acknowledge that there were tensions between the Docker and Google teams at the time. And then quote, there was a moment when egos prevailed. A lot of smart, experienced people at Google were blindsided by the complete outsiders at Docker, Hykes said. We didn't work at Google. We didn't go to Stanford. We didn't have a PhD in computer science. Some people felt like it was theirs to do. So there was a battle of egos. The result of that was not a good collaboration between Docker and Kubernetes teams when it really made sense to collaborate. And I think that is like perfect, right? It's like the Google, just what you're saying, Matt, the Google kind of coming in from a theoretical PhD, certainly I want to build a great distributed system mentality. And you really get the sense here that Hykes and the Docker team are like, we're developers, we're building stuff quick. We need to make it fast. We need to make it easy, and not really coming with that same background. And you can tell just in these two quotes, right? I mean, I think they're pretty, I think they just said what they mean, but I think you could read between the lines. Like if you had beers, you'd probably get some even better quotes out of them. But I think that the point is like, yeah, it's clearly like the Docker is like, it needs to be about the developer experience, and the Google teams, no, it's about the operational experience. And like I said earlier, like that's where we are today.
Well, and I think to pull apart what Cote was saying, it's not the operational experience as an operator of the platform. It's you want to make a platform for developers to deploy to without knowing about the platform. Right. That's the reason GitOps is so popular in the Kubernetes scene, is they're look, if you just code your stuff this way, you don't have to worry about the platform. And like, as an operator, you're like, yeah, but what happens with you know, how do I debug this platform? And they're like, that's not our problem. You know, we're here to give this like nice API to, and this is the same problem that like OpenStack had, where as an operator, it sucked, you know, because it was super complicated to debug and understand. But if you could provide this nice, clean API to the consumers, you know, the developers, they didn't really care. And to me, that's where Kubernetes is, you know, we're continuing to tell people, just code it this way and it'll be fine. And don't worry about under the covers.
Right? I think you know, I think you're onto something there, Matt Ray. Like all the things you've been saying, which is, I think operator experience is much different than developer experience. Mm-hmm. Like there's two. I've never really been an ops person, but I would assume there's at least two things that an operator cares about as far as experience. And I think 1 to 80 on a 100 scale is it doesn't break, Like I'm pretty sure they're interested. And this is why you start, like, why for an operations person, starting with theory and principles is important, right? Because it's like, above all else, I value something that doesn't break, right? Like it might be difficult or weird to like deal with, but like if it breaks and it's easy to use, I don't care, right? Like if it's hard to use and it doesn't break, I love it, right? Like it's fine. The ease of use is a secondary concern to like it shouldn't break, right? So if you're building a system that is based on ease of use above works, there's the high potential for an operations person to be like, I'm not interested. Like, for example, Linux and Unix, right? Like very complicated, hard to figure out, but kind of like reliable, right? But
there's also like this, I don't know, uncanny valley of works for operations of like, Windows back in the day. You had a lot of operators of Windows infrastructure like, oh yeah, I understand the failure cases of Windows and it's easy to administer, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so Windows would fail a lot, but it had good tooling to deal with it.
Yeah. And I mean, so maybe, that makes sense as well. And so that's the other part is like, when it does break, it's possible for me to fix it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and possible, like, I wonder if this is true. I bet the way that you rate the goodness of possible is based on the amount of time it takes you, not the difficulty of it. Right? Because really your suffering is going to come from spending a long time figuring out what a problem is. Not that like you've got to like sit there and think and make your brain hurt. Right? So it's okay if it's difficult to figure out how something like how you diagnose and fix something. But if it takes a long time, that's a problem. Right? Like taking a long time is terrible. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but like,
I'll go in this tangent with you too, because what people liked about Linux was they never got blocked by having to wait for Microsoft support. They could like continue to dig for themselves, right? It wasn't like, well, at this point I've opened a ticket and we just wait, so you could get people who could go off in the weeds and winding it back up the stack. Like Docker came at it with a very Windows look and feel, right? I mean, it was just like, look, there's a lot of complexity here, but let's just give you something easy to consume and usable. And, boom, they captured, 95% of the desktop, not virtualization, but, the containerization story. There were hard ways to do it before, right? There were jails and there were, LXC and all sorts of other, obtuse, complicated things, but like you needed someone to make it easy and consumable. And that's what they did with the containerization story. And then they're like, we're going to do this with, the orchestration layer next. And the Kubernetes folks kind of showed up and they're like, no, you're coming into an area that's so complicated. You need to make sure you've thought this through before you do it. And I think that's where the tension was. You had your Stanford, MIT folks showing up and being like, no, you can't just YOLO this thing. And not that Swarm was YOLOing it. It's just like, the Google folks are like, we've been doing this for 10 years, right? We know what we know where the landmines are. We've been here. Let's do this. And, that's why there was this tension. You had the people who were like, we understand the theory and we have, a reference implementation for you to start with. And you had the people who are like, we're just feel it out from here. We'll
but like, I think it's kind of like, if you play the timeline out, then I can't say I have a lot of hands-on knowledge of Swarm, so it's always dangerous to comment on, but like, I don't ever remember people saying like, oh, this is really easy to use. And this is so much better than Kubernetes. I think you would get like, oh, there's pros and cons, but there wasn't. So I don't know if that, maybe they just ran out of time. They never achieved their vision, or they didn't, to Craig's point here, they didn't really, didn't respect the history. It's like, hey, everyone wants to make it easy until they start building these things out. And it's like, turns out
I don't even know if it was a technical, I don't know if they got a chance to get to the corner cases. I think Kubernetes, there was the like tension with the open source community around Docker and Moby and all that stuff at the same time, Kubernetes, was finding traction, and there was this reticence from other enterprise players to play with Docker. While they're like, look, this Kubernetes thing is out in the open. It's a free for all. We can, we can open stack this thing, and and so I think, I don't think that Swarm got a chance to find out if it was a real competitor.
Yeah, so I think you're right, though. I mean, I think maybe, I don't know, there's lots of different opinions about why Google open source Kubernetes, but one of them could just simply be, hey, we have to prevent anyone from becoming the next VMware.
Yeah,
and we're going to quickly put out the orchestrator platform. We're going to make it open source. We're going to get buy-in from AWS and Azure as much as possible, right? And we're going to neutralize Swarm as being the best choice. And then, of course, Docker, I don't know when in the timeline it happened. Docker turns down the multi-billion-dollar offer from Microsoft, right? Because that would be definitely an interesting alternate history, right? It was like, okay, Microsoft sort of gets off the Kubernetes train and is all in on the Swarm side, and like, what does that look like? I mean,
that wasn't even mentioned in the article, I don't think, right?
I think somewhere.
Well, there was talk about the acquisition offers, right? That they turned down some have to go through the article and find it, but there were acquisition offers that were made that were considered too lowball or whatever, and they were turned down. But it would have been nice if we were in some sort of Hyper-V versus VMware scenario today, but both sides were actually like open source, and not that there's I don't know if there's enough headspace in the developer and operations community to support two large things like Kubernetes, right? It's like, it's hard to get enough developers working on it that can understand all the pieces of this elephant. Now you're saying we need two elephants, right? Well, I'm saying we need two elephants, but competition's good.
Yeah, I'm also remembering reading through this started me thinking, the other thing to ask in this context is always like, compared to what? Like, because it's to only focus on like Docker and Kubernetes excludes like probably 90% of the workloads running out there.
It also excludes some of the other runner-ups like Mesosphere and Nomad.
I mean just like somewhere in our Slack channel, which you could go to if you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com and click on the Slack link. You can follow the links people have and everything. There was a post about someone estimating where the spend comes in AWS, and I think like most of it was like EC2 and S3, right?
Yeah, it's like half EC2.
Yeah, and I didn't do the research to find out who was saying this or how they estimated, but whatever. Let's just run with it because my whole screed here is going to be ruined if that's false. So that would be terrible. But it's sort of like, so it seems like the baseline is probably not the baseline. The normal is like running in VMs, probably LAMP stacks, and running on EC2 with S3 stuff and like typical 3-tier applications. And I don't know, like if I were to remember some vague Gartner things, like that's 85 to 90% of the workloads out there, if not more. And so like one of the things I was realizing is that there's not really that much conversation about why is that bad. And I know I work at VMware, so I sound like I'm being like, just keep doing that. But it's more of a point of like, in the context of all the discussion that is always in Kubernetes when it comes to developers is that it's difficult to use, right? And so like, listeners here know that my question is always like, so why don't we fix that, right? Like that would be, if your thing is difficult to use, seems like that would be a high priority item, right? Which kind of goes down the path of like, well, it's not for the people who think it's difficult and it's for operations, but it also kind of like brings up the question, like, and the thought exercise of like, well, it's probably a good idea to remember why we're doing this difficult thing.
Yeah.
Does anyone remember, like, I mean, is the previous way of doing things so terrible? Like, and I'm not asking that in a way like I think the answer is no or whatever. It's just like, I was reflecting, as they say, after reading this, that like I don't think anyone talks about that anymore. Like, and so I went to go look up, like, what are the reasons you would do container-based architectures? And I was reading through it, and I have some more homework here to do. But all of the reasons to use container-based architectures, like, are the same reasons to use any based architecture, right? Like, you could have swapped that in for like using Windows or probably COBOL, or like you're probably running on Fortran 74 and you want to use Fortran 78. Like, I mean, they were all the same sort of reasons of agility, cost, and reliability, right? Like, and it's so like I think I found some like convincing reasons of why doing container-based architectures are better based on the technology, but it made me realize that like we don't really, and by we I mean whoever's listening to this and vendors and people using all this stuff, like we don't really talk about that much. We just are sort of like, yeah, we need agility. But it's sort of like, well, you don't have that? which
I think, to be fair though, like I think what the way it comes out is more like, let's take the traditional like architecture data centers. I've got all these servers, I got VMware running, everything's good. And everything hums along for a while. But then what you find is these VMs are highly coupled to the operating system. So you'll end up with like a bunch of like Windows 2008. Yeah. And then suddenly it's like, well, why don't, to your point, it's like people are like, well, we just need to re-platform these to Windows 2016, right? Or whatever, something supported. And like, how hard is that? Turns out pretty hard, right? Like just grabbing these, and then you start to look at like, well, how could this be better? And this is sort of your Matt's world a little bit, right? Then you look into like automated config management and CI/CD, and like, oh, could we have some layers of abstraction here and not be so coupled, so that the next time the Windows operating system or Linux or anybody deprecates, that we can rebuild these a lot faster. And when you're sitting and you say to yourself, well, one Windows VM, 2008, that's not a big problem. I think the problem and the thing that weighs the organization down, to your Agile point, is like when you've got thousands of these VMs, right, sitting there, and you have to try to convert them, and you're staring at millions of dollars in either migrations cost and new licensing, right, to get all that working. That's the point where you're like, whoa, the whole team is going to be doing this for the next 2 years and not doing anything related to the business. And like, how could we do it better? And that's where I think people start reading about containers as like, hey, here's a better, faster, cheaper way to do it. Even if they haven't experienced it, they're just sort of like, that looks like a really good solution.
Well, and the benefits of adopting any framework is standardization of constraints. You're telling people like, look, if it fits in this pattern, you get these benefits. And the benefits of containerization are, it can run anywhere, and your application sits in this box, and that's pretty amazing, because what Brandon's talking about there, this VM sprawls, like there's no standardization there. All you've done is like standardize that software's running.
Right. Yeah. And then a shout out to no SSHJJ, of course, right? Is like, it doesn't have to be this way, but it just tends to be this way. Like VMs just tend to be long lived, and they start to get tweaked, and people kind of like make small changes to them, and they start to look like the pets, right? It's just like, it doesn't have to be like that, but VMs just sort of like gravitate that way. And then there's like a VM that nobody wants to touch, right? And it's been running for a long time, and maybe it's running Windows 2000 or 2003 or NT, and it's like, like we found ourselves like a real problem. So I mean, that's where I think all of this is coming from. Now, to your point though, like, can we get there? And if we get there, will all of this stuff in Kubernetes be just as complicated? I mean, some days, right? I mean, some days I feel like that, and other days I'm like, no, this is the future. So, it depends on when you get me.
There's this, number of too many VMs versus, containers are worth it. And for some, if you can run the mental cost of running 1,000 containers versus 100,000 is very, very low, right? Once you've adopted the containerization strategy, you are kind of uncapped on the high end. You a lot of that mental load of like, going from 10 VMs to 100 VMs, it's doable by, one or two admins or whatever, but they can't get to 1,000, right? Yeah. They just can't. But you know what? You can go from 10 to 100 to 100,000 containers, relatively easily.
That would be a good thing to have. Like, you remember some of my favorite ads from the past ever, like on the when there used to be computer industry magazine still. I feel like there was a good 5-year run where Oracle always had the back cover.
Yeah,
and they were
definitely
comparing themselves to like IBM or Sun. I don't even remember.
I think it was even Fortune. I think it was even business magazines too.
Yeah, and it would just be a chart of just like, maybe this is when they own Sun. I don't remember, but like just Oracle is faster, right? And it's just better. And so in that sense, that would be like the next time I crack open like some O'Reilly funny animal book about Kubernetes, it'd be great to see just a chart that illustrating what you were saying is just like, just by raw compute and cost, or I think they would call that performance, like it's better, right? So that would be that would be high up on the list of things. And then the next one, like, to put in my gobbledygook, one of the excellent points y'all were saying is that, like, well, what happens in the let's call it not container way of doing things, or if you allow people to determine what operating system they're using, that will last you about 3 years before you have problems, right? Like, and like, I mean, that's the kind of thing that I'm always curious to hear about, is like very specific things, like price performance is better with containers than with the alternative, whether it's EC2 or VMs or bare metal or whatever. So that would be a fun like thing to see ongoing. And then the other thing would be like, this is one of those weird numbers or whatever, but basically, like, unless you're going to keep the operating system up to date on a 6-month window, what's going to happen is you're going to have this compounding nonsense that 2 to 3 years into it, it's going to be very, very difficult to manage all those operating systems and update them. And then the software you have running on top of those operating systems are going to be damaged. And they also suffer that same thing. So eventually it's kind of like, you're not going to be able to deploy modify your software very frequently. Versus, and I don't know I think the following is technically true, versus if you do more of a container-based architecture, you only have one operating system. I mean, this used to be a thing we talk about with PCF a lot, right? That like, there's only one operating system. You don't have all these multiple ones. And so like that would be a compelling, like, concrete thing. Right. And then on and on and on. It's like, what are all of these, like, when someone is complaining about like how difficult it is, or like how much of a change it is, it would be nice to have like, here's 5 points about how this is actually going to make your life better.
I mean, that's definitely a strong aspect of it. I mean, because operations tech debt is compound interest. The longer you wait on it, the greater it gets. And I mean, maybe it's a payday loan, I don't know, but like if it's containers, you're paying that, you're paying your credit card bill at the end of the month. You're paying that thing off, and it doesn't have a chance to accrue that debt, because you're like, we updated to Alpine next version, and it just kept working, and so we didn't pick up any technical debt. Or we ran into this bug and we fixed it in a week, and it didn't linger till we're worried about Windows 2008 deprecations. So it definitely eliminates that. It eliminates the ability to have your snowflakes that can't fit in that in that container. Those are still going to exist. They're still going to be like pets over. Still, people still have dogs, but if you can adopt the cattle or ant strategy, that's going to work better,
right? And
to get to those large scales.
And then so that like just to what did you call it, Matt Ray? A tangent, to mess around in the tangent more, like that would go back to the conflict in the article there, to essentially say, and this is what Kubernetes would say of itself to personify it, right? Is like, what we do is we define some atomic units, or whatever phrase they use, right? Like, we define this set of like, what is it? There's 8, maybe 10 things that exist in the Kubernetes world. There's probably more or fewer depending on what you count as a thing.
Right, but as you're deploying your app, you only get a couple of knobs.
Right. There's only so there's like 10 or less things, right, that you can deal with. Mm-hmm. And that is probably like 50 to 300 less than the current state of doing things.
Absolutely.
Right. And so like if you have less things, there's like less stuff to mess up, essentially, right? Like it's just like, going back to our dishwasher thing, another solution to the dishwasher problem from last week is only have 10 things you would ever have in your kitchen to put in the dishwasher. Then it's really easy to keep things clean. But that is not realistic for large enterprises, such as Matt Ray's family of 7, as I recall. So
it gets bigger,
not including the dog. but so that would be another, like, maybe a third bullet point on it is just like, people are going to make poor choices about the long-term maintainability of what they're doing. And so if you give them less guns to shoot themselves in the foot with, just by the law of small numbers, there will be less shooting yourself in the foot. And so like we're going to limit the amount of things that are there and be pretty strict about what you can do. And then they don't there's not all this madness that's going on. And the true test of that would be whenever there is a large mega company, let's see, maybe 5 years from now, let's say 5 to 8 years from now, when like everyone's doing container-based stuff. And then there's a company that acquires the next 3 competitors in its industry and they have to consolidate their portfolio. That's when we would see if this standardization thing really pays off, right? Because that's when you get the madness, is when you acquire and roll up all these companies and you try to achieve synergies on the similarity of their platforms.
Yeah, so if everyone just adopts Kubernetes, all these acquisitions will be super easy. It all ties into M&A.
All right, good. I like it. M&A, good ending. All right. Well, good. If
I couldn't come up with a tortured analogy of Kubernetes being Australia, and they're like no guns, and of course Texas being the IT Wild West. They're like guns for everybody, no licenses.
That's a good point. Huh.
All right. Well, everyone should go check out our sponsor at CBT Nuggets. They'll teach you more about Kubernetes and nothing about what Matt was talking about there. No. I liked your. I don't know. Did someone say it? Or I just came back to compounding technical debt. I feel like that's probably something everyone's using. But I feel like a good slide. I need to must be a slide already built out there.
I think that's the project I'm going to work on for my next little booklet. Is trying. I know what the goal is. The goal is to make people realize that you've got to deal with your legacy stuff as
But I think the operating systems. I was thinking when you were talking, I was like, oh, you have a little slide and show Windows 2008, and then you move it over, then you stack Windows 2016, and then you kind of stack them on top of each other. And you just kind of show, and then you show maybe a container, and you say, hey, I've stripped the operating system down to whatever the minimal amount of operating system I need. And you just show little tiny changes going across. Maybe that would just make it more resonant.
No. You know what? Adopting Windows 2016 or whatever is knowingly going into a balloon payment mortgage.
I like that too. Yeah, right. That's actually a good.
Because you know, in 5 years that's going to bite you in the ass, or 8 years or whatever their EOL policy is. You're like, oh yeah, I'll have it paid off by then. That thing's not going to bite me. It's going to be gone.
But we have to I like this. I like this balloon payment. I'm already see some balloon clip art on my slide. It's going to be great. But my question is to be fair about it, though, it's even the because eventually you do have to upgrade the operating system in Linux, right? What is I don't know, maybe it's not a balloon payment.
You don't
maybe maybe that's a refinance at good rates. You're oh, it's still 2%. It won't be that hard. I'm not gonna have this.
Well, I'm sure there's always the series of meetings where someone is well, in 3 years we're gonna have to spend 6 months and $10 million upgrading to Windows. And in the meeting, 3 years in the past, someone's like, sure, that sounds great. Let's do it. right? And like I think collectively they have that not very, because like I'm sure other animals are like this too, but like they have that human mindset of like, yeah, but that's not going to happen to me, right? Like
right. But I think this is where most I think most companies are today, though, right? They're all around, like, it's not like any of them start, because it's like there is no, for the most part, no green, like for the companies we're talking about, enterprises, there's no greenfield. They're always like have a massive VMware, VM infrastructure sitting there. And what happens is, I do think you're right. Like, no one is ever thinking about the future. They're just like dealing with 2008 today, right? 2016, I don't know, Matt, we'll have to look it up. Like 2016 is coming up pretty quick on the
2019 thing. Is out, right?
Yeah. So like, I can't remember. I think they announced when 2016 is going to go end of life, but that'll be the next one. And I just think it's like, there's just no time. No one has any time to think about the future. They're just like, I got to deal with this right now. And that becomes like, if, to your question, Cote, earlier, was like, that's your baseline of spend and productivity all the time. Right. Yeah. And then of course the CIO, right, that's compounding technical debt, or the CEO, whoever, someone's just asking like, this is just getting more and more expensive. And it's like, yeah, because like, nothing really rotates out, or rotates out so
somebody
slowly.
Signed us up on all these balloon payment mortgages, thinking that we'll be in 5 years I won't be here to care.
It's kind of true. It's like the goal is for most, and what I see is most people leave before the balloon payment is due. Right? They rotate, and then
I'll totally sell that house before that balloon payment comes in, or
financial bankruptcy, and people are all mad, and then you live through the balloon payment. And you don't really pay it off. You like refinance into like a worse deal. And then new people come in. But again, the goal is always to move before the payment is due, right?
So when is the GFC for IT? Or is it always happening? Who's invest? Yeah, that's probably where we are.
That'd be so funny if someone showed up like the
I'm gonna moneyball this thing.
You failed your stress test. There's too much technical debt. You just like we can't let you. You're done. You're too big to fail. Like you gotta hire 1,000 more people because you just got too much tech debt. So
There's almost like the accounting, because software gets amortized, right?
Amortized,
amortize. I don't know what amort. Yeah, and whereas it's almost. I don't know.
Go back into the episode.
Well, I mean, we're still recording.
All right, let's go here. We'll finish off.
Whereas, whatever the accounting is, what is the accounting for this kind of thing? Where the longer you do nothing, the more money you owe. I mean, I guess that's what interest is. But like, software should be financially treated like that. That like. The longer you don't touch it, the worse it gets. Kind of like, a fungus growing on your body, right? Like if, or a tumor, like software's like a tumor. You've got to like deal with it early on and maintain it, or it's just going to run wild.
I'd love to see it. Gap accounting. Like you'll have all of your facilities and like all of that is one line item, and then just be like tech debt. Look at this tech debt. Look at this line item. People freaking out. The CFO being like, we can't carry this anymore. Look at,
that's going to be the name of my my IT modernization consulting firm, Black Mold Removalists.
That would be so funny. You look at this Fortran you got in here. I can't carry this on the balance sheet.
My gosh.
Get this shit off here, right? It would just be so funny. The meeting would be hysterical.
Yeah, right, anyway. It's almost like the potential of a future lawsuit. That's what you're like carrying on the books.
Yeah, these are your liabilities. Look at this. Yeah. I cannot believe we have this.
There you go. There you go. Software's a liability. You have to pay for it to like.
The more you have, the more the more you carry, the more insurance you need.
Huh. That's so. Let's see. What should we go into? Wait. Now we wrap up, right?
No, I think we got time. We got one more.
Because we had 2 ad breaks. We just went to the second one.
What time? So I think you got like one more segment, and then you can wrap it up.
All right. Where's we already talk about that?
You talk EKS, or you want to talk?
Oh yeah, that's good. Thank you. Hold on, let me get some water here. My gigantic thing. All right. Well, once again, Matt Ray, and I don't mean this to be insulting to Brandon. Perhaps he knows as well, but we're going to start with you. So I read that there is now EKS Anywhere, which EKS is, of course, the Is it Elastic Kubernetes something? Is that what it stands for? Service.
Yes. Elastic Kubernetes Service. I think that's what the E stands for.
So now, from the very, very shallow reading I've done, I think the amount of reading I've done you could fit into a tweet, maybe a 2008 tweet.
But oh wow!
In 2080, at this rate, they'll probably allow for 1,500 words. I don't know. We'll see. They'll acquire Medium, and your entire Twitter stream will just be Medium posts.
It'll just be live video. Of you talking.
Very nice.
That's Twitter.
So it sounds like what this means is that I can run EKS, Amazon's Kubernetes distro, on premise, and probably Edge. I'm assuming Edge as well, which is just a type of on premise as far as I can tell. Now, is that what's going on here?
That's exactly what's happening.
All right. Well, this has been a good episode.
You nailed it, Cote. Good night, everybody. Amazon EKS is so Amazon had, they've got EKS, the managed service. You go through the AWS console and you get it. They were offering it in their AWS Outpost, which is a managed device you get, and install in your infrastructure, but it's still managed by Amazon. It's, just living in your data center. And this is allowing you to manage, to install EKS on your own hardware, and manage it yourself. And so it's open source. They've thrown it up on GitHub, and they've added a lot of documentation and FAQs and a whole lot of tooling around the EKS cuddle command, and put that into Homebrew. I mean, it propped out fully formed. Probably a lot of it was already there. I just hadn't really noticed it. But it's definitely ready to go.
And it's really, it's the acknowledgement that, as we kind of joked like way back when they announced it, right? This is Amazon's or AWS's foray into hybrid cloud, right? After essentially saying there is no hybrid cloud for a long time. This is their version of like, yes, you can install the hardware and own the hardware if you want, and you can connect it to AWS's services, and you can just run it all together. So that's probably the biggest thing, right? That the biggest change, right, in messaging from Amazon, I think, is that.
So
you can run Amazon's Kubernetes distro on your own.
Yes, EKS Anywhere, and without paying Amazon, and also without using their console if you don't want to. I guess the idea is, this is a competitor to Anthos. And Rancher and other on-premises Kubernetes distros, so you can get it with or without support.
Well, that's exciting.
It's definitely Amazon has finally fully embraced hybrid.
Yeah, and I think we should just, to be fair, like Google's been on this for a while with Anthos and GKS, right? And then Azure has allowed you to do this as well. So, the other part that they never talk about here is that you can also install some infrastructure in another cloud like Azure, right? And I think Anthos, now they actually demonstrate it. They actually show you running some clusters on Amazon AWS EC2, and it all working together. And so you can do that as well. So if you wanted to be multi-cloud, right, you now have that option.
And so I have not done whatever one would do to look at the code and diagnose it and look through the documentation. I couldn't. My daughter's birthday is tomorrow, so I just couldn't find the time to go through it. But now my question on this stuff is like, so like if I download and run this, is it going to allow me to use like my EMC storage cluster? Like, does it have all the, I don't even know what they call it in the Kubernetes world, but like the drivers to run on things, and like when it comes, I should probably know this working for a company that does distros as well. But like, what are the norms of the Kubernetes community that when you like open source your Kubernetes distro, like, is it sort of like, yeah, but it only runs on these two sets of hardware? Or is it like, no, it runs on like whatever you want. Like it's just ready to go if whatever hardware you might want. Like what are the expectations that people have?
Well, they do cover some of the basics. They have distro coverage of pretty much. They're like, you're going to use Ubuntu, which
right.
I thought was a little surprising. I might want to install it on Amazon Linux, but a lot of it was Ubuntu based or running on VMware. And they come out with a list of, here are the things we officially support, but they link to some community supported stuff as well. So if you wanted to, for example, deploy this on a fleet of Raspberry Pis, you could.
But I do think, you could run the whole thing independently of Amazon. That is possible. Yes. But I don't think, for the most part, doing that, probably not going to happen that much, right? It seems like the place that makes the most sense is, I have some infrastructure, and either for business reasons, because of cost, or because of some data sovereignty, I want certain workloads to run on this hardware, but I'm still going to connect that through into the AWS, into my AWS.
I don't know. I think there are definitely shops that will run it because it's provided by a vendor who's spent the time to harden it, and they won't come into contact with AWS. I think this is, you see shops that run CentOS that never talk to Red Hat. It's the same sort of play where, look, I know that I trust that Amazon has put in the work to make sure that this is a good Kubernetes distro. And, so somebody is probably doing a bake-off of, well, I'm going to do, Rancher versus Ubuntu versus EKS of supported Kubernetes distros that I can get for free. Because people still want that cultivated experience. They don't want to do Kubernetes the hard way, but they're also too cheap to pay a vendor.
That's funny. I haven't thought of it in that way, but I want the free bake off. What a
There's
strange
absolutely
concept.
A free bake off going off, and I think.
But do you think that's a typical? You think most customers looking at EKS?
Not most.
Not most. But it could be done, but it's it's so.
But I can assure you, it is being done.
Right?
I don't think.
Well, I know, but you have Platform 9. You've, all these people you talked about, right? You have so many options. I just
you do. And I think some of the smaller players get further squeezed out.
Yeah.
I think Amazon is perfectly happy to squeeze out, the long tail of the market and give it away, because what'll happen is those customers will get big enough on their home built EKS that when they look, they'll be like, well, we've already tooled around the AWS offering, and that's the next logical place to go. And so this is Amazon grabbing the long tail away from, the Platform 9s, the Ranchers, the build it yourselves, the, Kubernetes the hard way. It's taking it from them and just saying look, we made this thing easy. We'll give it away. You don't have to pay us today. But when you're ready to pay, you already have tooled everything around EKS.
Yeah, that's true. We should also I'll throw out Replicated. We did an interview with Grant a while back, and they talk a lot about how they can kind of make it easy to put Kubernetes together and deliver all your software that way. So that's another version of the same thing. So I don't know. You're right. It definitely can be done. I think of, maybe it's just the people I talk to. It's more around the immediate, I think, need I see. It's just people I want to run some workloads on my hardware, but I still want to be connected up to a cloud, whether it be Google or AWS or someone else. And this sort of answers that question pretty easily. So I feel like that's the easier path. I want to install this myself and do a bake off. Yes, definitely can be done.
The free bake off.
Yeah, the free bake off. It's harder. That's harder, but it can be done.
That is so well. One, I wonder. How many Kubernetes distros are there on the list? Maybe
there's still a lot. Yeah,
too many.
Not as many as Linux distros, but there's a lot of Kubernetes distros. Right.
Yeah. So so there's three things. One, in this area is why, as I was going over earlier, I was trying to revisit why I would want to do this in the first place, why I would want to install a Kubernetes thing other than that's what one does. And then two, I wonder what the list of if you're going to be considering doing Kubernetes stuff, what is your default list of stuff? And I don't know, you could go to analysts to see this kind of thing, but like it'd be interesting to see like what people's list normally is. And then 3, I think I'm repeating this again, but this concept of the free bake-off, I think that is a strong enterprise product management and marketing thing that I don't think has been considered in depth operationally, is that like as part of your sales process, you need to enable the free bake-off, right? Like, and the reason you need to point that out is that it's going to cost you money to be involved in that bake-off, which most companies are allergic to. Like and so you've got to somehow figure out, it's related to the old thing, like, you know, a developer should be able to do something in 30 seconds or whatever. But equally importantly is that, like, in order to do a bake-off that would lead to a bigger enterprise sale, they have to first want to use some sort of free thing, but they have to be able to do this bake-off in comparison to all the other free things. Make sure to fund that.
Make it even a little simpler. Like I think the bake-off, if someone did it on YouTube, right, or something, that would be perfect. That like get you a lot of views. Would be the following: would be, show me how to, because I think the 5, like the people, I think this is the 5 things people ask about. Okay, I'm thinking about Kubernetes. I want to look at AWS EKS, Azure AKS, Google's Anthos and GKS, VMware Tanzu, and Red Hat OpenShift. I'm going to look at those 5, right? Yeah. If I've got budget or I'm an enterprise, those are the one I want to see. So if someone did a bake-off of like, just like, you know, concise, like, let's take some representative app and like, here's how you deploy it across all 5 of those, and here's the pros and cons for each. That is the bake-off I think everyone wants to see. And then if you want to really, and then the hard way, then have the version the hard way. It's like, here's how you could do it for free. And you know, here's, and then that part. And then someone can look at that and decide.
There's a segmentation there of, you know, these are the distros you can use for free, and these are the ones that after the bake-off you have to uninstall. And you know, Tanzu and OpenShift don't have a free tier. Or I mean, OpenShift has like a limited, you know, free tier, but it's all open source. But it's getting back to that, you know, you can't use Red Hat for free. You're going to use CentOS, and so I know that there's a CentOS of OpenShift, but I don't really know people use it. But if you can just use the exact same EKS or the exact same rancher that is supported, that's what I'm talking about, is the people who are like, you know, yeah, I'm just going to use that thing because it's free and supported.
Well, I just want like the wire cutter. I want my my budget pick. I want my upgrade pick. Maybe in this case there should be like the free pick. But okay. Like before I have to go, because you kind of jump to like the free. This is like, you know, this is kind of like the wire cutter thing. It's like, sometimes spend next to $50 and get the upgrade pick, and it is so worth your money, right?
Look,
like
I'm here to tell you, you should pay for Kubernetes.
That's what I'm going to say. So it's like, before you're kind of saying that like there's a real need for free Kubernetes. I'm sort of like, I think free Kubernetes is like your puppy, right? Like, you should have bought a mature dog, Matt. I think you know that, right? Spend the extra money. Get the dog that has been
this dog is costing me. Don't worry. Yeah.
So okay, you enhanced an idea I was just having. Is I think what I'm angling towards here, related to your wire cutter thing, is there should be an entirely different phrase than bake off. Because bake off, maybe it's just because we're at vendors. Bake off implies you're going to decide on who to give money to, right? Like, the point of a bake off is spending. Right. Whereas when it comes to free stuff, like, that is not your, what's the phrase you used earlier, Matt Ray? Something like happy constraints. Like, there's some snappy phrase you had about like operations people in Kubernetes where like you're actually limiting the choices. They have.
You definitely need constraints. I don't remember.
And so there's another category of bake-offs, which I don't think we should call bake-offs, which is like competing with free options, right? Because like the thing with, like, to your point of the wire cutter, is once you load in cost, like, that totally messes up your bake-off criteria, right? Like if all you're evaluating is like, this is the best, then like you're always going to end up with like a Ferrari at the top of the list, which is just like, you know, it's not what people are angling at with the bake-off.
That's the thing about the wire cutter, is they're like, stop spending money here. They're like, do not spend more than this much. It's like, that is better. That Ferrari, it's going to win you your Formula One, but we're here. You're at NASCAR.
Yeah. And so maybe it is obviously the Wirecutter achieved some sort of perfection in what they were doing. Right. And so like, maybe that is what I missed from a lot of bake-offs is, and also write-ups of competitive stuff is like, yeah, but what if I wanted to spend, what if I could spend more money, right? Like how much more do I actually get for spending more money?
Right.
Like versus like, and the opposite is true as well. It's like, yeah, but what if I don't want to spend more money, right? Like I'm willing to compromise. Like I don't really need 4K video for my baby monitor. So maybe I might even go down to 480p. Like that's totally cool, right? And like also like maybe I could use those big chunky USB things instead of a USB-C cable, right? And so like all those criteria like kind of fit. It kind of makes just like a stock bake-off without those things loaded into it like difficult, right? Because
there's like the luxury pick, the R pick, the budget pick.
Right.
And so, a free pick.
yeah. I don't know. Just bake-offs are weird. In that
respect. But I have absolutely seen bake-offs of free products, and they're just like, and I think EKS Anywhere is going to clean up on those because, their competition is Rancher as far as I could tell.
So I don't know. Maybe we should throw it out there to I don't know. Is there like I guess we have to start with like, is there like a definitive like good Hello World app that's like because that's really what you need. It's like, okay, here's the bake-off app you should start. Everyone has to do this app, and then you have to show standing it up, like configuring your clusters or whatever, standing it up, and then doing like XYZ. And because that's what I think. That's maybe the hard part is to get it normalized. If you let the vendors do it, everyone picks the.
I think you have to do an app that you can change your flight ticket to a later date within like 3 minutes. Right. Like that has to be the app that you have.
Like,
to.
Does it have to have? It has to have some persistence. Like we have to like maybe make it like.
Oh yeah, I'm choosing like a weird thing there because it implies integrating with a lot of different systems.
Right.
A certain time limit, like a certain amount of user experience, not having to call someone. Right. So it's got to be like this app that like is a realistic application.
Right.
And it's just like I want to be able to change my flight to tomorrow instead of tonight. And I'm on my phone in a cab and I have like 2 minutes.
Okay.
And so like, can I do that?
The canonical test app. All right. Well, there you go.
Can we put that into GitOps to test?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, someone has that. If someone has an app like that, send it to us. And then maybe we can.
It's like, if you can't make that better, why are you even here?
I like it.
Like that's what I need.
All right, we'll do it, and then Matt Ray will make it run on every conceivable Kubernetes installation for us. That would be what? No. Maybe we can recruit some people to like do it for their respective platforms.
Yes, I would like to see some Kubernetes stress test apps. That would be cool.
Yeah, I like it though. I like the 3 minutes with the mobile app. That's a use case we can all.
Yeah, and you're in a car like driving from Freisberg to the Munich airport, and you're like, I've only got 60 euros in my pocket, and this
just
guy
to make it a little bit harder. We also want like someone from your family is also texting you about something unrelated to you doing this, but you also have to switch back and forth to like respond to their text because that would be a true workflow. So
you're like, it's totally cool that I fired off some event into the event grid.
Yeah. It's like but like that's right.
It's got to work, right? Like I don't, and then also my phone is going to have to reboot. And so I need the session to persist. Otherwise, I've got to start all over again.
Session persistence. I like it. This is good. All right. It'll happen. Make it happen, Software Defined Talk listeners.
I don't think Kubernetes does what you think it does.
Don't ruin it, Matt. Don't ruin it for us.
Well, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is if like whatever infrastructure can make that possible is the infrastructure that people probably want. Right. Like that use case from the top, right? Like whatever it takes to trickle down to that is kind of like, that's what you need, right? Like that is the ultimate like thing people are chasing after. So like, if you're going through all this effort to like put some new infrastructure in place or put a new programming model or new architecture in place, if it can't support like a scenario like that, like why are you bothering, right? Like just go install like Oracle Rack or whatever. I think it does that, right? And
you've been to too many airports.
Exactly. Well, as always, speaking of people who've been in too many airports, if you wanted to go to some conferences, we have some coming up, which we'll tell you about shortly. But before that, Brandon, is there any bureaucracy we should go over?
Yeah, just a few things this week. So one, I want to thank Nate, who sent in a nice video. It's what is a lake house and why it matters. So I think last week I said something like, I think Databricks was the first to say this lake house, but he sent me this one from AWS. So I don't know. As far as I know, maybe AWS came with it first. So it's good. I feel like I'm finally getting the hang of the lake house. And of course, this seems like their response to Snowflake. So, of course, we're data experts here, always take our stock advice. So I'll put a nice link in there. Appreciate Nate. And he also kind of sent me a little text, was like a little cheat sheet. So I like it when the listeners make it simple for me. And also following up on our chores discussion last week, if you really want to go into it, Peter sent an article on sorting and searching algorithms applied to household chores. So this is another AWS site. So yeah, so if you really want to figure out, are you doing your chores the right way, you have the algorithms that you can check out there. So so check those links out. And then if you like a sticker, just send your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. I'll be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world. And we're also getting our YouTube channel off the ground. So if you want to see behind the scenes of what it takes to record an episode, please subscribe to the channel. We'll probably do some demos and some other videos. Some people I've talked to, they want to show some stuff. So we'll have some some video stuff up there soon enough. But until then, you can go behind the scenes and check out our YouTube channel. And I'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed, not only because I just want you to like and subscribe, is I'm trying to get my own URL, but I got to get 100 subscribers. You know how they is. Everything's gamified these days. So please subscribe. Make it easier for me to get a custom URL. So check all that stuff out.
We need to have some of those like 3-hour streams on YouTube where since we use Restream, we can like play some chill music. And maybe next time you're editing the podcast, Brandon, you can just be like, all right, I'm gonna load up the podcast here.
We could do an EKS Anywhere install walkthrough.
Oh, that's a good idea. I'll call in from my phone in a cab, trying to change a ticket, and then you can madly be installing some Kubernetes distro.
And then you'll be like, now fix my ticket. And I'll be like, hello world.
Cote, I need you to send some YAML. I need a change or a pull request to change. Yeah, that's probably what will happen. Also, there's some conferences coming up. So later this month, this being September, on September 28th to 30th, there's the DevOps World by CloudBees. Now, if you don't get enough DevOps out of that world, you should join. We have a conference right before VMworld called DevOps Loop that I've helped put together. And I just talked with the last speaker that we needed to follow up with to get her talk together. And it looks great. She's going to go over kind of connecting together GitOps and DevOps, which will be a fun talk to see. Pretty much all of these talks, I am genuinely interested in seeing them. And I've tried to curate stuff that I'm interested in as well. But anyways, you should check that out. If you go to devopsloop.io, it's October 4th, and it's free. You should check it out. Also, there's that conference over there in Round Rock, down in Texas. I'm going to go all the directions, over there, down there, up there. Which one am I missing? You got over there, down there, up there, right here, I think.
North of Austin.
Yeah. Anyways, it's over in Round Rock, Texas, which is just north of Austin, January 17th to 20th. And then, out of chronological order, there's also KubeCon, October 15th to 11th, if you were going back in time, which is to say it's October 11th to 15th. And it's online and in person. So y'all can check that out. Now with that, Matt Ray, what is your recommendation this week?
Well, spring has started here in Australia. Weather's starting to warm up, and got up the hammock. So that's my recommendation. Is spend some time in your hammock with your laptop and enjoy the weather.
That's a very Cote recommendation, recommending a concept instead of a thing.
You don't need to spend money. Well, unless you don't have a hammock. Go buy a hammock.
Hammock. What? You ever look up the etymology of the word hammock? Because looking at that word,
I have not.
Hammock. That's a strange word. Now, when you lay in a hammock, do you lay with your feet curved up like a banana, or do you lay flat? Like, what is the what are you supposed to do?
Well, your body kind of fits the shape of the hammock, so it's vague, pretty banana-like.
But what I'm saying is, if you shift perpendicular to the banana, my understanding is the hammock is supposed to expand out.
Oh,
so
can you get
lay
like
flat.
a little straighter?
Yeah. Then you can lay flat.
I don't know, man. That's some advanced hammockry right there.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. How about yourself, Brandon? What do you have to recommend?
Let's see, a couple things this week. I want to recommend. I finished this book called Recursion. So it's of course, when I say I finished this book, I mean I listened to it on Audible. So it's good. It's really a kind of a sci-fi kind of book, and it was, if you kind of like Christopher Nolan type movies, if you like that kind of stuff, I think Recursion was a really good read. And I found this by a recommendation of, I'm gonna go an anti-recommendation here, but people really like The Martian, and then the writer of The Martian also wrote this book, Project Hail Mary, which I also listened to. And I honestly, I don't think that these books are that good, but somebody said that that had read that, they said Recursion was a lot better, and it was a lot better. So I don't know. I finished Project Hail Mary. I thought it was kind of a little bit boring, got a little dull, but I also thought The Martian was boring. I don't know if you guys saw that movie or read that book, but I just was like, yeah, he's growing potatoes on Mars. Great. Like, can we move on? And because there's just so much detail about how he's growing the potatoes, which is, that's what people like. It's like, I don't care. Like, he's growing potatoes. Let's move on to some more plot. But so I was not in on Project Hail Mary. Maybe you'll be into it, but I was all in on Recursion. So check that out if you're looking for something to listen to.
Now, wait, didn't you recommend The Martian? I feel like the reason I read that book is you recommended it. Or was that Matt Ray?
I would hope not.
No, I haven't read it.
I mean, the movie,
I saw the movie.
The movie was all
movie's
right.
Good.
Maybe I recommended the movie because that's definitely the way to see it. But the book, if you thought the movie was slow, I got some time for you in the book, man.
Man, I need to go look this up because I could have.
Did you read The Martian? Did you read it?
Oh, yeah.
What did you think? Did you like it? Am I being too hard on it?
I mean, this is a long time ago. But yeah, I thought it was fine. It must be one of those books that, like, if you were to boil it down to a plot, you'd be like, this is, as you say, growing potatoes. But like, maybe just the way that it was written made it compelling and interesting.
All right. Well, I don't know. I just don't have that. And hey, let me also go back and clean up something I said. So before I said on that household chores, actually the recommendation was Algorithms to Live By, which is a book that was posted on Amazon. I was thinking it was AWS, but not. So that's a book that one of the listeners recommended, Algorithms to Live By. So a couple things to read, or maybe not read, depending on if you like them, like learning about potatoes or not. So there you go.
Well, I have two non-potato recommendations. The first one is, speaking of books, I am experimenting with I don't know, you might even call it a life hack. I'm not sure. But what I realize is I hear all these book recommendations and I go put them in Goodreads, like want to read, and I never go look at them, right? But what you can do in Kindle is you can send a free sample. So I've been using the ability to send free samples as a sort of bookmark of books that I want to read, and we'll see if it actually works. Because in theory, and this has happened a couple of times, I'll go and like read the free sample and then I'll decide to buy the whole book. And so I think that might be a better way to track books that you want to read. Now, my other recommendation, I forget the exact name of the app. I'll put it in the show notes, which will be available at softwaredefinedtalk.com/319. But I read in one of these newsletters, gives like writing advice, that the original Webster's Dictionary, written in the late 1800s or early 1900s, is actually very, what's the word? Not poetic. It's not like a sterile sort of like scientific dictionary that you would have nowadays, very like straightforward. There's a lot of artistry in it. And so like, if you're interested, it's fun to go look up words in there and see like very extended kind of arty discussions of definitions that you're not used to. And there's lots of apps you can go buy, or you can get the original text. But go hunt down the original Webster's Dictionary for some fun reading about things. So as always, this has been Software Defined Talk. I believe this is episode 319, as I referenced earlier. So if you want to get the show notes for this episode, including links of things we've talked to and things we didn't talk to, the recommendations that we had, the memories that we've made, all sorts of things like that, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/319 and see those and find out how to subscribe to the newsletter that we have that has all sorts of great stuff in it, everything I just mentioned. Join the Slack and things like that. And with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, I don't think I've ever read. I just was searching there. I was afraid I recommended The Martian, and I was like, no, I can't find it. I don't know. So if I did, I can't. I was like, well, concerned. I was concerned. That was
so it was free with my Audible subscription, and when I canceled my Audible subscription, it took it out of the Audible app. So I've not read it or listened to it. I saw the movie, but with all those credits, I did buy that book you just didn't recommend.
Nice.
Well, I was like, I gotta cancel this subscription. I just don't. I'm not an audiobook person.
No, that's fine. I mean, hey,
I got too many podcasts.
You're supposed to read it. Yeah. Everyone will tell you it's better to read it. I'm way off that train, but like, yeah, no.
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't have time.
I don't know. Yeah. Reading overrated.
Well, no, I think yeah. There's some books that are nicer to whatever. I think they're fine.
Well, have either of you read Dune?
Yes,
a long time ago.
I was trying to get my oldest to read it recently, and I was going to reread it. I've read it like 2 or 3 times.
All right, like I don't know. I had like my brain. Like I've tried. I get an audiobook, so I've tried a couple of times. I'm like, I get lost. I'm like, what are we? Like, where are we? I guess someone described it as like, and I think Game of Thrones like this too. Like when you have a lot of what world building, I guess, quote unquote. It's like, it's like, oh man, shit. Like I'm lost of where we are. But it's like, but it seems like it's been so recommended so much, and of course has this movie coming out, which I guess is getting mixed reviews. But I was like, I feel like I should get on it and read it, but I don't know. Like, what did you tell your oldest? You were like, hey, this is why you should read it. It's really good. Like what?
He reads a lot of like trash fiction. Or science fiction.
You mean stuff that's easy to follow with good plot points?
No, stuff that's free on Kindle.
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably.
I mean, like trash.
Okay, that's probably not good then. That's not good.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah.
I built a robot, and then we went to space, and I discovered an alien. Thank you for your 99 cents.
But it's the free to Kindle is they pad stuff out by the word. I mean, by the page. It's
just like SEO writing almost, probably.
Oh my God, it is. You know,
because the 99-cent books, they will have some good deals.
Like, no. There's totally some good stuff. And like, I subscribe to authors I like because sometimes their books will, go on sale and you get notified. And I'm like, I'll get back to reading that eventually.
I should, but it'd be interesting for me to like look at Dune again because I read that so long ago, and I feel like it was in that era of book reading where like I don't know if I was actually reading the book so much as looking at the words, if that makes sense. Like there's a lot.
Did you summarize Dune today? Like if I said, give me 500.
I've seen the movie a bunch of times too.
Right. Like, that's the second thing.
And I'm a movie apologist because I saw I read the book a few times.
Right. That's the second problem in evaluating it is like, I have also seen the movie many times. So like I'm, my mind is messed up.
Well, I think this is the dilemma. I'm going to see this new version of the movie, regardless of
absolutely.
The reviews. I'm all in. I'm going to, it doesn't matter if it gets 0. I'm watching it. So love the director. I really should try to read this before I see the movie. Right. Of course. Cause then, it ruins it if you don't do it. But I was just like, man, I just cannot get through this. I just got to be really focused.
Do we need to put the stake in the ground and we're going to have the Dune episode?
I'm not committing to that. I can't commit to that.
Here's what I would do if I was reading the book is like there really are in the movies, there's no like explanation of why all these characters do anything that they do. There's no like motivation gone over.
You're trying to squeeze it under 2 hours.
Oh yeah, right. So maybe in the book you would come to understand like what the deal is, like because
and the new movie is 2 movies, right?
I have no idea, but that might be what made the book more entertaining is you actually get like.
I even watched the sci-fi miniseries way back in the day. Was that like 2007 or something?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why maybe Dune really should just be like a series, right? Like kind of like that's why Game of Thrones, because it had so much time, except the ending, of course, they rushed it. But like you did get a sense of like
the
what
motivation.
the motivation, right?
Yeah.
So in 2 hours, though, you're right. It would take a lot to like. You can't do all the quote unquote world building in 2 hours. It'd just be like
So the 2021 movie is the first of two. So they actually still split the book in two.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, maybe maybe that gets me off the hook then. If they've got 4 hours, that's probably as much as I can spend on it. So,
but no, I'm excited about the new movie, and I'm a big fan.
Now, maybe what I could do is I've never read all that Isaac Asimov stuff. I could go read that stuff.
Read that. He read all the Foundation stuff and liked it, right? And because I sit him down on that, I was like, you like that, you should read Dune. And you don't have to read all 11 Dune books or whatever, but
Son of Dune.
I agree. Well, a huge fan. I think our listeners would probably Matt Ray, maybe you have to go solo on that. You have to like do a full hour by yourself just going over Dune, right? That would be
no, I could get my friend Eric on. I could get so my college roommates were all radio, television, film majors, and like we all geeked out over Dune. Many times.
Seems like they're looking for work. Maybe they want to produce a podcast. I mean,
yes. We have like a special episode, barely, but
Graham says an hour is not enough on Dune. Go full mini series. Go five episodes. So
there you go.
All right, I gotta go. Big night here. We gotta watch some NFL, so I gotta get this thing edited, get it out. So I can
is that thing on? Yeah.
Watch some NFL football. Cote, I know you're gonna be in on that. Don't worry, I'll fill you in later.
I mean, that's why I have to leave.
That's right. That's why you have to leave.
It's midnight.
All right. All right, everyone. Have a good one. Thanks to all the streamers. Take care.
Bye.